You're really weak, Ryuk. The voice rang out through the meditation room, where Ryuk sat cross-legged. Ice blew all around him, seeping into his skin, and slowly, color returned to his pale face as blood began to circulate once more. Beside him sat Isha, her curious eyes fixed on his face. Her claws rested beneath her chin as if she were deep in thought. "Oh, please," Ryuk muttered, trying to concentrate against the voice ringing directly in his head. "And that human boy is strong," Isha continued. "That attack of his was powerful. I bet it could have killed you." Ryuk's lips curled into a grin, but he couldn't keep it up. He burst into laughter. "You think it wouldn't have done the same to you?" he asked. Isha shook her head. "It wouldn't even touch me because I wouldn't run toward it like a fool. That's what killed the Colossal. It lacked a few brain cells. It should have run instead of charging forward. I would have waited for the attack to miss, and just as that boy fell, I'd have given him a quick ending." She said this with pride, and Ryuk couldn't deny that her words made some sense. The Colossal had truly run straight at Arthur instead of avoiding the obvious threat. It was strong, but it lacked critical intelligence. Also, that man who came at the end, he was strong too. "He's the real threat," Isha added, her maw baring slightly in irritation. "I hate it," she suddenly growled, her eyes furrowing. "Hate what?" Ryuk asked. "The feeling of someone being stronger than me. I hate it." Ryuk's amused smile faded as he looked at her. Her claws had extended, scratching the ice beneath her, and an eerie crimson line began to appear in her white pupils. The same strange shift that had happened when she turned against him previously. "It's fine, Isha," Ryuk reassured. "They're the instructors. They're meant to train us. They won't harm us." But Isha wasn't buying it. She stood, pacing in circles around the room, lost in thought. "Even if they're not our enemies, I still hate it. And are you sure the instructors really won't harm us?" "Of course, why don't you think so? I mean, you all just fought a Colossal, something that could slap any of you to death with a single attack, and the instructor never appeared once during the entire battle." Ryuk frowned. If he really cared whether you lived or died, he would have been in the arena ensuring no one was killed. But he never showed up, not until after the Colossal was already dead. And I doubt he would have appeared even if one or two of you had died. "You say they can't kill us? That doesn't sound real." Isha's words trailed off, but Ryuk found himself thinking about it. Instructor Kane had left them alone to fight the Colossal and vanished. He never reappeared until the battle was over. And the real question was, would he have stepped in if a student was crushed? That seemed unlikely. It was only through sheer luck that none of the students had died. So there was a very real possibility that any of them could have perished during that battle. Were they truly safe with the instructors? Even if the instructors weren't allowed to kill them directly, there were countless ways to ensure their deaths, like throwing them into a battle they weren't meant to survive. Am I getting too comfortable with the academy? Ryuk thought to himself, his eyes flashing with an odd light. He hadn't noticed it before, but now it was clear he was letting his guard down. Before, he would always be cautious, always doubt everything. But now he was being lax, even telling Isha not to worry, reassuring her that the instructors wouldn't do anything to them without him thinking about it deeply himself. "You see what I mean now?" Isha asked, stopping her pacing and locking eyes with him. "It's true," Ryuk admitted, his brows furrowing. "While the instructors can't outright kill us, they can always throw us into a Colossal's den and let nature take its course. We're not truly safe." Isha exhaled a puff of cold mist from her nose. "Exactly," she muttered. "Don't you hate that feeling, Ryuk? Not having control over your own life? I hate it. I hate it very much." She laid back down on the ice. "But, Isha, why didn't you partake in the test?" Ryuk suddenly asked, drawing her attention. "You don't seem scared of the Colossal. In fact, I doubt you wouldn't be able to defeat it." At the start of class, Ryuk had asked Isha if she wanted to join in the fight, but she had refused. He had assumed it was out of fear. But now, after hearing how little she thought of the Colossal's strength, he realized she hadn't been afraid at all. She must have had another reason for staying out of the fight. I'm not scared of that dumb idiot, Isha stated, rising and walking toward Ryuk before sitting down in front of him. He has strength but no brains. He's not a real threat. Then why? Ryuk pressed. What I wanted to see was you, Ryuk. Ryuk blinked. Me? Isha nodded. Yes, I wanted to see your true strength. Your power. I strangely can't gauge it. She leaned slightly forward, her eyes narrowing. Just so you know, she continued, I can sense the power of everyone I lay my eyes on. But when I look at you, can you guess what I see? Ryuk remained silent. An abyss, she finally said. Ryuk raised a brow. An abyss. Yes, Ryuk, an abyss. She tapped her claws against the ice, taking a few scoops, and then ice began forming around her fingers as she soon formed an ice cup. Think of people's power as a cup. Isha began pointing to the cup in her hand. The more filled their cup is, the more power they have. I have a cup too, and I can simply compare theirs to mine to see who is stronger. But you, she met his gaze. You're different. In what sense? Ryuk asked with curiosity. I can see your cup too, but there's a problem, Isha said as she narrowed her eyes at Ryuk's heart, her gaze filled with confusion. When I look into your cup, I can't see its end. You don't understand. Others' cups can be easily seen. I can even see the liquid inside, peering straight through and gauging everything at a glance. But you, she frowned. Even when I look directly down at your cup, I can't see its depth. It's incredibly deep. Really, really deep. Because it's so deep, I have no idea how much liquid you have inside. That means I have no clue how strong you really are. That was why I didn't help out in the battle with the Colossal. I was hoping it would force you to reveal your strength, so I could finally gauge whether that liquid inside your cup is plenty or barely a drop. Isha's explanation made Ryuk furrow his brows. I guess you've gotten your answer, he muttered. Yes, that was why I said you're really weak, Isha nodded. Your cup might be bottomless, but no matter how deep it is, if what you displayed in that battle wasn't far from your full capability, then that liquid inside must be very little. You have a cup with an unfathomable depth, so much space. Yet the liquid within is so small. When compared to the cup you have, it's so ridiculously low, it's not even worth a comparison. If the liquid signifies one's strength, then I wonder, what does the cup itself stand for? Isha rubbed her jaw in thought before she eventually gave up, letting her head fall into Ryuk's lap as she drifted into slumber. But while Ryuk gently patted her head, his mind was in turmoil, unable to stay calm anymore. Does Host know what the cup signifies? The system's notification flashed before his eyes, making Ryuk stare at Isha's icy blue scales for a while, remaining silent. Potential. The cup signifies potential, Ryuk replied in his mind. Correct. Host's potential is as deep as an abyss. But that abyss needs to be filled with strength. And even with Host's intense training over the past few months, she still couldn't see Host's strength at all. That's like dropping a single drop of water into a dried well. So little it wouldn't even be visible. What are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that Host has truly been working hard these past months, giving it his all. That is undeniable. But compared to what Host is truly capable of, it's like a single drop of water in a vast, dried-up abyss. Irrelevant. The system's words slammed into his mind, and a thick vein bulged on Ryuk's forehead, though his hand continued gently patting Isha's head, never wavering. Host is giving it his all, but as Host can see, it's useless. It doesn't have much effect compared to what Host is truly capable of. Isha can see the cups of others, even the instructors. Their cups are small, which is why the liquid they have seems enough to fill them. But Host is not like them. Host's potential for growth is like an abyss. Those people Host trains with can easily fill up their cups. Why? Because their cups are small. Their little effort is enough because their potential doesn't have much space to fill. In due time, they will fill it up and reach the peak of their potential. But what about Host? Host's cup is an abyss. If Host keeps training at this tempo, how long will it take to fill it? Ha! A million years. Does Host really have a million years to fill up his abyss of potential? When Host's instructor, Mad White, speaks of those 25-year-old interdimensional beings powerful enough to make half of Endertha's entire force stand up in battle, Host must understand, these are people with much larger potential compared to Endiarthians. Their cups must be bigger, and with them having such immense strength at just 25, then just like Mad White said, there must be something that allows them to fill their cups faster. Whatever it is, Host must find out. Only then will Host truly be able to fill up his potential at the correct speed. Right now, Host's growth pace might seem impressive to Endiarthians with their tiny cups of potential. But to anyone who understands Host's true potential, it's trash. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time Host steals his mind and enters that portal. Find out how those other interdimensional beings were able to grow so fast. You're essentially telling me to go throw my life away in a Lord rank portal. Ryuk shot back. But the system wasn't backing down. Host is allowing his environment to define him. Lord rank portal or not, 25-year-olds have come out of it. And I can bet my existence they don't have half the same potential as Host. Host's potential is far greater. But how will Host ever reach his full capability if he never tries to move beyond his comfort zone, which is exactly what the whole of Endearth is? Host, you're no Endiarthian. You're a null. A race of weaklings who have only just started grappling with apex energy is not what Host is. Host belongs to a race known for their domination, not just over other races, but entire planetary systems across the universe. They are apex predators, beyond anything these fragile Endiarthians can comprehend. Host needs to start seeing himself as what he truly is. And just so Host knows, when those people come for him, as unveiled Bob's prophecy foretold, they won't be Endiarthians. If they share a familial connection with Host, then they most likely have Host's same bottomless potential too. Unlike Host, who is still afraid of figuring out how to fill up that bottomless cup faster, theirs will likely be filled to the brim already. My guess, the moment a familial being to Host arrives on Endearth, even if they have only half the depth of Host's cup, their energy wave alone will probably reduce this entire planet to dust, without them even lifting a finger. What? Ryuk thought in shock as he looked at the holographic panel, which had the message flashing in red. Yes, Host. If Isha's sighting of Host's potential is truly like an abyss, then filling up even half that abyss is enough to bring ruin upon an entire world from mere aura alone. Most likely, Host's foes will be at a level beyond Host's imagination, the system said as he unconsciously heaved, but then, thinking deeper about things, he started to notice the system might not be bluffing, as a part of him thinks. Uncle Bob had been killed by the Null, whose power was at least an A-grade beast. But after that holographic message during his nanobody evolution, he had learned that Uncle Bob had lost 95% of his cultivation due to him passing Ryuk his veins for him to use. That must mean that when Uncle Bob exchanged moves with a Null and sent it retreating, he was essentially fighting an A-grade beast with just 5% of his true power. That brought the question, if Uncle Bob never passed Ryuk his veins and possessed absolutely 100% of his true power, then what level of power would he be at if just 5% of his true power was already equal to that of an A-grade beast? Most likely, Uncle Bob is at the Eternity grade. Ryuk wondered to himself, his eyes flashing from the realization. But how is that possible? How are there people with so much power? There are 25-year-olds out there with enough power to rival half the force of the entire Endereth. And guess what? They might not even be considered geniuses in their world. If you never go into that portal, you will forever have to live with the fact that there are 25-year-olds possessing as much power as you do, despite having spent hundreds of years in cultivation. Mad White's voice resounded once more through his head as Ryuk clenched his teeth. Do I really have no choice? He asked himself. He had barely settled down here. He had barely started feeling peace. He had barely gotten a smooth direction for his future, spend his time training in the academy, graduate, and become a better person. And now, he had to leave that clear future behind and venture alone into a Lord rank gate. a place where his chances of return were so low they weren't worth consideration at all. Now, he had no choice but to venture into the abyss. It wasn't venturing into the abyss that was hard for Ryuk. It was venturing into the abyss after seeing a clear path to a brighter future. The choice of going into the portal seemed so stupid now that he had his life under control. But there was also that haunting reality, the reality that he would never truly reach his potential if he remained here. The reality that his foes would be stronger than he could ever imagine, and that he would most likely die to them if he never entered the abyss. The choices were two, and incredibly hard to make. To continue living his peaceful life as a student, growing at the same potential as everyone else but never truly reaching his full potential, with the possibility that when his foes come for him, he would no doubt be wiped away with the mere release of aura from them. Or to cast all of this clear future aside, venture into the abyss where hope of return was almost non-existent, and fight hard to reach his full potential. If he succeeded, able to face his foes on the same footing and secure his life. In the end, what choice should he make? A stable existence right now but a seemingly bleak future, or a bleak chance of existence right now for a somewhat hope of a brighter future? What would you have me choose, Uncle Bob? Tell me. Ryuk mused under his breath, his gaze looking at Isha, yet lost in the distance. The memories of time passed flowing before his eyes before a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. I know what you would have me do, Uncle Bob. I know you would have kicked my butt into that portal and waited until the end of time for me to return. I know you would have done anything for me to secure a brighter future, even if death is very well a possibility now. I can't lose to my foes, Uncle Bob. I can't let all of your sacrifices go to waste. If the system is right and my foes are really as strong as that, then if I keep going at this safe pace, I would never be able to defeat them, and in the end, your sacrifice will be too late. That isn't a choice at all. But if I venture into the Lord Rank portal, I might die, and once I die, everything also goes to waste. It's hard. It's twisting me mad. Ryuk stared at his hand, pulling at his hair. Now I can only let hope be my ultimate decision. If I stay in Enderath, there is no hope of surviving my foes, and I'll only be prolonging my death. But if I venture into the Lord Rank portal, as dangerous as it might be, I might just be able to narrowly survive. With the help of the level-up cards I have now and the level-up cards that I will get when I arrive in the portal itself, and Isha's help, with the 2 contracted spaces for new beasts. Who knows? I might just have a chance of surviving a Lord Rank portal. In the end, what is my choice? In the end, it's all on a hope. All on a who knows? In the end, it's all on fate. If I'm destined to die in the portal, then I will die. If I'm destined to live, then I will live. Isn't that what you always say, Quinn? Ryuk muttered to himself like a madman, but his eyes soon opened up, his blue eyes flaring with a blue halo. No, Quinn. I'll fight fate itself. Hard enough for it to give me its good one. Hey, system, Ryuk called. Yes. I accept the quest. Quite unlike you to ask for a walk. The cool and excited voice of a lady rang out through the top of a bridge, where low green grasses mixed with an array of multicolored flowers could be seen. Beneath the bridge, a flowing, clear blue stream shimmered. The sound of gently flapping wings took control of the area, mixed in with babbling brooks and chirping insects. Walking on the bridge was a duo, a lady with long golden hair and a boy with snow-white hair and dual-colored eyes, one sparkling blue and the other a dull crimson. They were none other than Morgane and Ryuk. You seem to be enjoying it more than I am, though. Ryuk replied as Morgane grinned. I am. What do you think of the place? Perfect, no? She asked. Ryuk looked around him, and truly, the environment he was in was perfect. Green grasses, very clean air, with strangely no mana. It was pure, natural air, incredibly comforting and pressureless. The place was also very quiet, enough to quiet down Ryuk's thoughts and make him feel lighthearted. It's perfect. I never thought there would be such a place within the Ascension Academy. Hehe. It's called the Love Abode, the most beautiful place in the entire academy. I've only heard about this place once myself. Finally got the chance for a visit, Morgane said, her eyes marveling at the area for a long while. It was her first time too, and she was also in awe of the beauty of this place. It was almost out of this world. The two eventually skidded to a stop at the middle of the bridge, as Ryuk's deep eyes stared into the calm river, his gaze piercing through it and sighting the white stones, which were strangely radiating a blue light. He could guess they were most likely the ones that cleansed the river and gave it its blue color, making it so beautiful to the eye. "You seem to have something on your mind, Ryuk," Morgane suddenly said as Ryuk turned his attention away to stare at her. "How do you know? Your aura is usually highly spirited even though you pretty much keep a poker, uncaring expression all day long. Your aura is usually lively in the end. But the same can't be said now. You look too long at simple things like just now, and you seem deep in thought every time. That's very unlike you. There's something wrong," Morgane said, her eyebrows furrowed in worry. Ryuk turned his gaze back to the river, only to have his cheek caught in her arm and turned back to her golden irises. "Tell me, please," she whispered, and Ryuk inhaled. "I'll be leaving the academy," he said, as Morgane's eyes flashed in confusion. "Why?" "Just for some training. I got accepted as an instructor's intern and have to leave for some personal training." "Oh, that? I had an instructor also ask me if I wanted to be a personal intern just a few hours ago," Morgane said with a grin, and Ryuk nodded. "Did you accept?" he asked, and she shook her head. "I didn't. She's not a fallen. I don't want an instructor who is not a fallen, as only a fallen can train another fallen well. I will agree, but only if the instructor is a fallen too. You get?" she asked, and Ryuk nodded. "So you've already accepted and are going on training soon. Lucky you," she said, shoving his ribs with her elbow, and Ryuk rolled his eyes. "Maybe. So that's why you asked me out for a walk." "Wah-ah. Didn't know someone is so addicted to my presence," Morgane voiced out cheekily, and Ryuk snorted. "I won't get addicted to your presence, even in a million years from now." Ryuk swore, and surprise clouded Morgane's face. The same for Ryuk. "Did I just use her line?" "Hehe. You are," Morgane said, laughing evilly, and he rolled his eyes. "I'll be leaving. I just wanted to tell you to be safe. Hopefully, I don't come back and see you with only one eye left," Ryuk said as Morgane harumphed. "I'm still stronger than you, you dickhead. No way I'm losing an eye before you do," Morgane said with a snort as Ryuk chuckled. Silence reigned in the place for a while, the only sound to be heard being that of their hair flailing around in the wind. "You'll come back soon, won't you, Ryuk?" Morgane whispered quietly. He felt her gaze on him and, looking back at her, responded, "I will. Promise. I promise." "Good then. I'll be waiting and also," Morgane suddenly said as she closed in on Ryuk and leaned to his ear. "I have something to tell you once you get back," she said, and Ryuk's curiosity was piqued. "And what is that?" You'll only know once you get back. If you want to find out what it is, then get back quicker. Got it?" she asked, and Ryuk shrugged. "That's a good one. I'm serious, you dickhead," she said, elbowing him in the ribs as he winced from pain. "Still so heavy-handed," he mused under his breath, as Morgane giggled before bouncing away with a mischievous smile. "See you soon, Ryuk. Don't keep me waiting for too long," she said before disappearing completely from Ryuk's gaze. He stared long at her disappearing figure before turning back to look at the river meandering below the bridge. "With that settled, nothing holds me back anymore. It's time to meet Madwhite?" Ryuk mused as he turned on his Apex watch and rapidly tapped on the notification. "Madwhite, I'll be waiting for you on top." The message came after a bit of typing, and Ryuk rose up and walked away from the bridge, his mind steeled. It was time. Finally, a change of mind? The voice rang out through the top of the skyscraper, where Madwhite sat with the biggest of smiles on his face, looking at Ryuk, who held one of the teacups in his hand but barely took a sip. He had learned his lesson from the last time, and now he was being extra careful. Having his throat burned before entering a Lord-rank portal wasn't something on his wish list. "Tell me, Ryuk, what made you change your mind?" Mad White asked with interest as Ryuk shrugged. "Just felt like I'm too young to allow guilt to cloud my mind at this stage of my life, and my curiosity finally got the better of me," Ryuk stated, causing a loud chuckle from Mad White. "I have a question, though. Is there a solid, sure way to get out of the realm at any time?" Ryuk asked cautiously. If there was a way to get into the portal by using the vial, then obviously there should be a way for him to get out as quickly as possible too. Only then would things be less risky. Of course, just like how there's a runic circle in Endearth that allows them to come in, there must also be a clearly drawn runic circle in that world too, facilitating instant movement back into Endearth. "You have the vial?" he asked as Ryuk dipped his hand into his pocket and brought out the vial given to him by Mad White. "Good. This vial should be up to 4 drops. 2 drops to go into the realm. Wherever you land, just look beneath your feet, and you will find a teleporter too. Splash 2 drops on it, and it will open, allowing you to land back here. But remember, this vial is the only key to that realm. There's no other one, meaning once you use it to get in and then come out, that's the end of it. No one will ever be able to get into that realm again, and it will be locked forever. Don't get chills and quickly come running back. You get?" Mad White said, and Ryuk shrugged. "I make no promises," Ryuk replied. If things were beyond his control, then he would obviously come running back in. But now that he knew he could come out at any time he wished, there was quite the amount of peace in his heart. So long as there was a way back, then there was a way to survive. "Good then, I believe you're ready. But just in case, I've gotten a few things to aid in your survival," Mad White said as he stretched his palm, revealing a blue ring, which he placed on the table and slid toward Ryuk. It was a storage ring, and Ryuk picked it up, his consciousness slipping inside and citing a few things that formed a small pile. In there are defensive runic cards that can block a one-time attack of a being at the peak of the Dominion stage. There are about 10 within. And then there are 5 offensive runic cards with the power of a peak Dominion cultivator within. With this, you should be able to at least run away from any peak Dominion stage beasts you find. Also, there are 3 teleportation runic cards too. Just crush them, and you will get sent about 1,000 kilometers from where you are. If all goes to hell, just crush a card, and you will get away from whatever it is. But be careful, you only got 3. Once they're used up, that's all. You will have to fight whatever you meet head-on. After that, there are a couple of battle suits within. Those clothes have material thick enough to block the attack of an early-stage Dominion beast without causing harm to you while wearing them. There are 3 inside. You don't know if there are tiny insects that might wish to sting you, but with the battle suits, you can protect yourself while you sleep and quickly wake up to react to the attack. There are also about a dozen tents inside for you to sleep in. They are built with materials that are thick enough to block anything from the outside world, like toxic gas, rain, and even harsh sunlight. Also, they can withstand the attack of an early-stage Dominion beast, and there's also a safety alarm within. It activates if there's a creature of the early-stage Dominion beast or above within a vicinity of 200 meters around you. This can help you quickly recognize that there are creatures around you in the dark of night and can give you enough time to react. Be careful, though, because there are only about 12 inside, and their effectiveness reduces based on how long they are exposed to the factors they defend against. I'm guessing the tents will lose effectiveness after they've been used for about a week, so make sure to rotate and change them with every passing day. There are also a couple of seasonings to cook, a flame runic card that can provide light in the darkness, and a couple of stinging ice smokes. Those things are termed as dirty artifacts, but in the wild, there is no such thing as a dirty move. Use them to get out of any situation. That's almost everything. Still, inside that storage ring, you have enough equipment to make sure you don't get killed in the first 3 days at least. Well, unless you're unlucky enough to cross a creature at the early cataclysm stage on your first day. Then you will have no choice but to use half of your resources to get out, and if you're stupid, that will be the end of you. So, that's all I can help you with, Mad White explained lengthily, and Ryuk felt his mind blown away by the list of equipment in the storage ring. He never expected that Madwhite would have this much prepared for him and simply thought he would open the gate and tell him to go in. With this, his chances of surviving had just risen astronomically, and he could pretty much avoid any sneak attack that came his way. "Thank you, Madwhite. Don't stress it. Now, without wasting any more time," Madwhite said as he pulled hard at the void beside him, catching onto a vortex in the depths of the void. "Let's get going." Surrounded by broken mountains and scarred ground that bore the marks of blades and scorch marks stood none other than two individuals, both with flapping snow-white hair. They were none other than Madwhite and Ryuk, and before them was the clear runic line on the ground. Slowly bringing out the vial, Ryuk passed it to Madwhite, who took it silently and then walked onto the formation. Opening the vial, he poured a tiny amount, 2 drops, at the very center of the runic line before passing the vial back to Ryuk. With curiosity, both figures watched as the dropped liquid began swimming along the lines of the formation. Immediately, the liquid started spreading along the edges of the runic line, soon covering the entire pattern before slowly disappearing. After 2 minutes of waiting, nothing happened. Is it faulty?" Madwhite was the first to break the silence as Ryuk raised an eyebrow at the man, then stepped onto the hard rock, but nothing changed. "How weird," he said, standing on the runic portal, yet still nothing happened. It was almost as if no difference had been made. "I guess that's the end of the trail then," Ryuk stated, a slight, peaceful exhale leaving his heart. But then, Buurist, a bright pillar of blue light burst out from the runic formation, flashing into the sky and carving an arc through the clouds. The intense light continued for about a minute before it finally started to recede. When Ryuk and Madwhite looked back at the formation, they no longer saw just markings but a wide-open gate. Inside lay pitch darkness, an abyss. Madwhite and Ryuk turned their heads to look at the portal, but no matter how hard Ryuk stared, he couldn't see its end. It was almost like it was bottomless. "You said you've gone in before, right?" Ryuk asked. Madwhite nodded. "Yes, but the last time I went in, the portal wasn't resting on the formation. It was like a door above the formation that I entered. And at the end of it, there was a hole I couldn't get through. But this is opening up straight into the formation itself," Ryuk noticed, his eyebrows furrowing as Madwhite casually shrugged. "It's fine. It might just be taking a different form." But suddenly, their eyes widened in shock as the portal began shrinking rapidly. "Get in now," Madwhite ordered, and in a flash, Ryuk jumped upward above the portal before dropping with gravity. For a second, his gaze met that of Madwhite, and no more words were needed. Ryuk disappeared down the portal, and a few seconds later, the gate formation shut with a bang before returning to its previous state. "Hoo-oo." A deep exhale left Madwhite's lips after Ryuk's disappearance. He shut his eyes closed for a while before looking up at the turbid sky. But then, dry thing, the sound of ringing rang out, coming from none other than Madwhite's apex watch. He picked it up and raised it to his ear. "Is he gone?" A thick and slightly old voice came from the other end. Madwhite exhaled before replying. "Yes, I've sent him to that world." Good. That's the only way to protect his life. If he comes back, he will return with enough power to protect himself. And if he never comes back, that must mean he died. The same result that would be waiting for him here in the academy anyway. The old voice rang out from the other side, its tone suffused with deep scorn that made Madwhite's eyes narrow. They truly seemed to have their attention on him. "Even the damn Order Guardians," Madwhite said slowly, stepping away from the portal. "No, the Order Guardians are nothing compared to the grand scheme of things. The top families know only horror awaits them if he is to grow. He's the only one with the potential, and even the ancient monsters of the families will try to nip him in the bud while he's still too young, or try to make him ally with them. The horror of what they have done to the human race in the past is what scares them. They're afraid of retribution for their godforsaken actions. But I believe in karma, and I know one day, as impossible as it may sound, karma will be delivered. and the races that dare claim our world for their own will be punished and banished away from whatever hell they came from. The old voice carried weight, loud with anger. Mad White paused in his steps, respectfully listening. But his hands betrayed him, his fists unconsciously clenched at his sides. The man's words struck at his heart, and images of the dark era flashed in his mind. The era that took everything from them. The era when humans had their world snatched from them, stabbed in the back by the other races. The day when Earth was changed to End Earth and humans became slaves. That era was when Mad White was born, and being so talented, he had seen the horror of it all vividly. The million of lives lost, the rapings, the endless struggle against absolute crushing power. Humanity fought the invaders with all their power, yet were ruthlessly crushed to nothing. Now history had been rewritten by the winners, and humans who once owned it all were now one of the bottommost of racial existence. Every scene of that dark era was carved in Mad White's soul itself, something he could never forget in a million years from now and doomed to live with forever. That was why his heart clenched at the words of the man, for this man was one of the only surviving ancient humans alive. Every word of his dripped with pain and experience, horror untold to none but himself. "In the name of Earth," the old voice said, this time much calmer. Mad White replied back, "In the name of Earth." Pitch darkness, a feeling of falling, pressure, encroaching danger, increasing fear. These were the few words that could describe Ryuk as he disappeared rapidly down the formation. The darkness was so deep that he couldn't see anything at all, and all he felt was the sensation of endlessly falling below. "Activate Nano Reaper," Ryuk ordered in his mind as the humongous scythe snaked out of the void, landing in his grasp. Ryuk turned upside down, making his head shoot down with speed through the abyssal darkness. He could feel the space behind him constricting as if it were being locked down, and he knew well that he needed to speed up. But accelerating through this darkness, where his eyes couldn't see anything, created unfathomable pressure on him, causing his heart to beat rapidly. A strange feeling of encroaching danger crept upon him. The concept of time was lost to him in this scenario, but quickly he found something within the darkness. A ginormous vortex, seemingly more of a black hole, that appeared in his line of sight. It rotated with speed, as various dark and crimson runic lines flashed on its gaseous surface. "What is that?" Ryuk asked. The darkness of this vortex was so deep that it created a sharp contrast with the darkness around him, allowing him to barely see it. It was like falling into a large ocean, but one made of gas. As Ryuk tried to slow down his speed, he failed, and in the next moment he could only wrap himself into a ball. The edges of his clothes wound around his head before he disappeared into the vortex. Time seemed to have paused momentarily, with his sense of self and balance disappearing for a while. But then, bam, bam, bam. His sense of pain and touch returned as he felt himself slam into the ground, bouncing off it a couple of times before finally having his motion stopped. He crashed onto an object, causing him to groan from the pain. Quickly snapping his eyes open, he was welcomed by the image of a pointed blade flashing with speed towards his head, as if to drill a hole through his forehead. At the last second, he could only raise his scythe to the blade's edge. Bah! A small sound of collision, yet with so much power, his arm bone holding the scythe shattered into pieces. Ryuk slammed his left foot to the ground, shooting to the side to avoid the entrapment. Quickly looking at the figure responsible, he saw a buzzing yellow-black bee, standing at a height of 1 meter, with 0.5 meter long buzzing wings. Its 4 eyes stared at Ryuk's figure, but then a thought appeared in his mind. The formation circle. According to Mad White, there ought to be another formation circle where he could have come out from, and when Ryuk looked behind him, he found it. But with something extra. On the formation circle, he had emerged from stood a broken 10-meter-tall home, made of clay. And now bees, like the one that had almost stung him, were starting to move out of the destroyed home. The bees had built their home on the transporter for whatever reason, and now that Ryuk had been thrown out of it, he had managed to destroy their home. Immediately, his face paled when he realized the stage of each bee. They are all grade C, Ryuk thought in shock, his face paling even more. Ryuk himself was only at the core stage of the plane of ascension, equaling the upper tier of grade D, but these bees were each at grade C, equaling the peak of the plane of ascension. His face paled even more when he felt a deeper, more threatening aura rising from the bottom of the house. In the next instant, a notification flashed. New quest issued. Survive the encroachment of the Huriaga bees. Rewards. The rewards of the quest barely flashed before Ryuk's gaze, but he paid them no attention as he shut away from where he stood, disappearing into the distance. Buuuuzzz. 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 Immediately, all the bees began buzzing loudly, and in an instant, about 50 of them chased after Ryuk's figure. Their sharp stingers surprisingly pointed towards him. The bees were flying backward. Damn it! Ryuk screamed in his mind as he rapidly moved through the bush, but then he soon realized something that caused horror to spread across his face. What the hell? Why am I so slow? Right now, Ryuk's legs, which would have normally turned into a blur based on how he moved in Endearth, now seemed like he was jogging instead. He was essentially running like an ordinary mortal, and horror appeared on his face when he felt the bees buzzing getting louder. Turning behind him, he could see the dozens of sharp stingers pointed at his back, and his face paled as he exerted more strength in his feet. Yet he was still so ridiculously slow. Damn. A loud buzzing rang out behind him, and he quickly turned to the side, only to find his ability to turn had also become incredibly difficult, resulting in him sliding down to the ground. But that maneuver saved his life, as a tree trunk was dug into by the sharp sting of a bee. The bee buzzed crazily, trying to remove itself from the tree trunk, only to fail. Quickly picking himself up, Ryuk continued his run like a dog, his clothes soon getting wet from sweat. And after 5 hours of relentless running, dodging, and avoiding the bees, Ryuk finally watched them turn their backs and buzz away from him. Immediately after, he collapsed onto his back, revealing a couple of large red boils behind him, the places where he had been critically stung by the bees. Even one of his eyes had a large boil swollen over it, along with his left arm, which had swelled up to 3 times its normal size. Congratulations. Host has completed the quest. Damn. You look pretty pathetic, Ryuk, running away like a coward. Where are your balls? The voice rang in Ryuk's head as he looked in front of him with his one remaining eye, sighing. It was Isha, and she was busy massaging her back and neck, a satisfied expression on her face, before staring back at Ryuk, still lying belly flat on the ground. His heart heaved up and down, making him look like a heaving toad. He. Laughter of mockery rang out in Ryuk's head as Isha laughed uncontrollably, but Ryuk didn't pay her any mind. Instead, he concentrated, allowing frost energy to meander out from his apex realm and dive underneath his skin where the boils were. Instantly, strange yellow liquid burst out of Ryuk's boils, some of them hot enough to burn away at his flesh. But with the poison gone, Ryuk's nanobot regeneration got to work, quickly patching away the wound. About an hour later, Ryuk finally felt life return to him. He pushed himself up with his arms, landing on his back instead and heaving out loud. His gaze now took in the brilliant blue sky before him, the images of tall trees at his line of sight giving him a little peace from the stinging pain that was slowly leaving him. Hey, Ryuk, we have to leave, Isha suddenly said as Ryuk inhaled deeply. How comfort. He had barely been able to say those words when he felt a claw grab onto his shoulder and throw him up into the air. Bomb! Ryuk felt his body slam onto a solid back. Before he knew it, the world became a blur as Isha sped into the distance at her fastest speed, drawing an eyebrow raise from Ryuk. Hey Isha, what's wrong? Ryuk asked, alarmed. But Isha didn't reply. Her speed increased even more, and when Ryuk turned his head behind her, his face paled. From a distance of about 200 meters away, Ryuk could see the gigantic serpentine head. It was pitch black in color, with 4 crimson eyes at its top. The head alone was so big, 200 Ryuks would have no problem fitting into its maw. The snake swam forward, seemingly calm, Yet Ryuk heard the sounds of venom dropping to the ground. The sound of the trees getting crushed rang out as Ryuk noted the dark saliva spewing out of the anaconda's lips with every single movement. That, an upper-grade B-beast? Ryuk thought in horror. An upper-grade B-beast was already at the level of the peak plane of Dominion. Yet when Ryuk sensed this beast's aura, it was 100 times worse than that of the Colossal, even though the Colossal was also at the peak stage of the plane of Dominion. This is weird. The beasts are so powerful. How are they so powerful? Isha, we can't run. We have to hide. Ryuk called as Isha raced through the distance. But with the speed of the snake, Ryuk could sense it would catch up to them soon, and right now it had not noticed them yet. If it did and increased its speed, it would be upon them in a flash. In the next instant, Isha suddenly faded away as Ryuk jumped off her back. In that very moment, he dove straight into a hole that his eyes picked up on the ground. Quickly, he dived into it, smashing his fist at the side. But a howl of pain shot through his hand as he felt his bones crack. Ryuk paid it no mind, punching a couple more times, enough for sand to block the entrance. He stilled his movements, stopping completely and lying down on the ground as if dead, forcing his heart to beat as silently as possible. Soon, the sound of dragging rang out above him. Ryuk's heart instantly sank in his chest when he felt the dragging suddenly slow down. The floor above him became heavy, with a steel-like protrusion digging out of the ground, hanging just an inch away from Ryuk's forehead. His face paled. If that thing moved just an inch more, it would dig straight into his forehead. But he dared not move. The sound of heavy sniffing rang out, but then it stopped. The protrusion dragged on the floor and lifted away from Ryuk. The sound of heavy slithering carried further and further down into the distance. Who? A deep inhale escaped Ryuk's lips as he felt the slithering snake disappear into the distance. But that was when his eyes flashed, and he turned behind him in shock. In his haste, Ryuk hadn't even paid attention to what could be hiding within the open ground. He had entered it without thinking, chilled by the fear of being sighted by the dark anaconda. But now, when he looked behind him, he found nothing. It was like a dug hole of some sort with an end. But bringing his sight below his feet, even in the darkness, Ryuk could see the clear claw marks that revealed to him that most likely, a beast was the one who had dug this hole into the ground. He couldn't judge what type of beast it was just from the claw marks alone. But that was signal enough for him to get his ass out of the beast's abode. Quickly, he dug away the sand he had used to block the entrance. After carefully scanning the area, Ryuk slipped away, soon finding a giant tree with large branches. With agility akin to a monkey, he quickly climbed up to its top before collapsing onto a branch. Looking above him, he could barely see the sky because of the giant leaves. Looking below, he couldn't see the ground either, his gaze obstructed by more giant leaves. Only then did Ryuk inhale loudly and calmly recline against the branch, his chest heaving up and down. He had managed to survive and get his bearings. For now, activate system interface, he ordered as he regained his breathing. Congratulations. Main quest. Accept Mad White's first training and enter the portal has been completed. The following rewards have been obtained. All possessed skills leveled up to level 10. Plus 7 level up cards. Plus 15,000 purchase points. Congratulations. Host has completed the quest. Survive the Colossal. The following rewards have been obtained. Plus 2 level up cards. Plus 4,000 EXP. Congratulations. Main quest. Survive the encroachment of the Hungaria beast has been completed. The following rewards have been obtained. Plus 2,000 EXP. System interface. Name: Ryuk Null. Race: half null, half unknown. Class: Beast Sovereign. Age: 16. Cultivation stage: core stage of the Plane of Ascension. Level: 24. EXP: 7, 800/10,000. Level up cards: 9. Does the host wish to level up? The system asked, and Ryuk nodded. Yes. -1 level up card. Congratulations. Host has leveled up to level 25. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 26. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 27. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 28. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 29. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 30. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 31. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 32. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. -1 level up card. Congratulations! Host has leveled up to level 33. Plus 15 attribute points obtained. Level up cards remaining 0. Stats: Strength 130, Agility 130, Endurance 130, Intelligence 130, Charisma 50, Luck Null, Mana 200, Attribute Points 135, 31, left from previous leveling but unused. How does the host wish to use attribute points? The system notification asked. Ryuk furrowed his brows. Every 10 level-ups, my attribute points should increase by +5, but this time there's no increase. It's still at 15 even though I already crossed level 30. Ryuk mused, quickly noticing the oddity. But there wasn't much he could do about it. Maybe there will be a difference when I reach level 40. Currently sitting under a tree, using branches and leaves to cover himself, Ryuk carefully considered how to distribute his strength. He knew exactly what he needed most right now. Input 70 points to strength, 70 points to agility, and the rest into endurance, he ordered. Ryuk's thinking was simple. For reasons he couldn't explain, he felt unusually slow in this place. He understood one thing clearly. If he wanted to survive, the first thing he needed was speed to escape danger. That's why his first priority was agility, where he poured in 70 attribute points. The next priority was strength. After speed, power was the second most important factor, and to maintain a balance between speed and strength, he decided allocated an equal number of points. Finally, the remaining points went into endurance, allowing him to last longer in battle. The moment the points were allocated, his body froze. His heartbeat surged wildly, pounding in his chest like a war drum. Veins bulged across his skin, golden flames burning through them. Jarrar. A faint groan of pain escaped Ryuk's lips as he clenched his teeth. It felt as if molten lava was being poured into his heart, searing through every organ. And yet, at the same time, it was as if he was being reforged, his very being reshaped into something greater, like a blade being tempered by endless hammering flames. After 5 minutes of searing agony, a sudden wave of relief washed over his body as the pain faded away. But now, something was different. Looking down at his feet, Ryuk noticed strange tattoos stretching across both legs, extending from his toenails to his knees. There was no clear pattern, yet he faintly felt that they formed a symbol, one he couldn't recognize. For now, a blue light flickered along the markings, specks of energy seeping from them. His hands instinctively moved toward them, his fingers tracing over the glowing runic lines. But as he did, his gaze shifted to his arms, and his breath hitched. The same runic lines covered his arms, spilling out faint blue light from his fingertips to his shoulders. His arms suddenly felt weightless, as if they no longer carried any strength. Yet at the same time, his hands filled him with an eerie sense of power. "Hey, system, what is this?" Ryuk murmured, the unfamiliar sight making him forget the pain he had just endured. Stats: Strength 200, Agility, 200. Mana, 200. Endurance, 156. Intelligence, 130. Charisma, 50. Luck, null. Attribute points, 0. Host has successfully reached the first line of true power in accordance with the system protocol, which requires reaching 200 stat points in an attribute. Now that Host's strength and agility have both reached 200, crossing the system's power threshold, the runic lines on Host's legs signify the system's recognition of agility, while the markings on Host's arms signify the recognition of strength. Only now has Host truly earned the system's acknowledgement. The system explained, but Ryuk couldn't say he fully understood what it meant. In short, there is now a massive difference between Host's former strength and speed. It has reached such a level that even the Draconic Pet's evolution system recognizes it and grants its blessing. Right now, Host has truly begun to touch the foundation of ultimate power. The system's words echoed in his mind as Ryuk's eyes flashed. Suddenly, something moved to his left. A massive claw, nearly a meter long, slashed through the tree where Ryuk sat. Crack! The thick branches snapped apart like twigs, the attack whistling toward him. Cold, metallic light gleamed through the air, aiming straight for Ryuk's upper body. What the hell? Ryuk barely muttered as he sighted the gleaming metallic light flashing towards his head, mere inches from ripping it to ribbons. He was well hidden on the tree, with the leaves blocking anything from seeing him above or below. Yet there was now a claw inches from him, and he never sensed it all. Boom! Looking at the massive claw, Ryuk instinctively reacted, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. He swiftly raised his hand and slapped out towards the claw, striking its center. Immediately, the gigantic claw was held in place, unable to advance an inch. But as Ryuk exerted strength, he was sent soaring backward, crashing onto the ground with his feet, skidding for 5 meters before coming to a stop. That collision should have been enough for a shockwave to ripple into the clouds. Yet, the air didn't even shake at all. And the ground beneath me, which would have been reduced to a large chasm if I were in Enderath, barely has a single crack on its surface. Ryuk mused, noticing the strangeness of his surroundings. He could sense that whatever force he had just clashed with should have been strong enough to send shockwaves ripping through the air. Yet, there was barely any ripple. Even though his feet had slammed into the ground with power, not a single crack had formed beneath them. And not to mention his speed right now, it wasn't at the level it should be. He had just increased it to level 200. Why does it now only feel like when I was at level 130 in Enderath? Oh, now I understand. I understand. Ryuk's lips curled into a grin as the creature that had collided into him finally emerged from the branches, revealing itself. A chameleon-like beast, nearly 4 meters in height, its brown and green body perfectly matching the colors of the branches Ryuk had previously been sitting on. Its claws dug into the tree, glowing with a metallic sheen, revealing just how sharp they were. Its 3 eyes, 2 at the sides of its head and 1 in the center, stared at Ryuk unblinking as it remained perched on the tree. My slow speed, the heavy air, the hard ground, all of this is telling me that this is not Enderath. No, this is a world higher than Enderath. As my power grows, Enderath's ground becomes more fragile. Its air becomes softer and seemingly easier to tear through. But this is a different world. It's not that I've gotten weaker or slower. It's just that the air is thousands of times heavier, making sure I can't slice through it. The ground is so hard that when I punched it deliberately, my hand almost shattered into pieces. The beasts here are strong. Every little one that ambushes me has an even stronger cultivation than mine. Ryuk stated as he looked at the beast and found it to be easily a grade C upper rank beast. This chameleon was even more powerful than the evolved bees he had faced before, and its concealment power was so great that even with his extraordinary perception, he had been unable to sense the beast until the attack was barely inches away from his head. This is no Enderath. This is a world even greater than it in all aspects. And right now, I just happen to be on the lowest of the low. the absolute weakest in this new world. Blood pumped fast through his heart, adrenaline rushing through his veins, as the feeling of exhilaration covered him. It was a feeling he had almost lost ever since he left Grade E. The feeling of being alone with a beast whose fearsome aura threatened to tear him apart. But this place brought more exhilaration. For even in Grade E, Ryuk knew he was stronger than some beasts. But here, every single beast gave him the chills. He wasn't a stranger to the wild. He had lived in it all his younger life and therefore knew there was a food chain. And here Ryuk was now at the lowest of the low. Now he had to join in on the fun. The fun of rising up the food chain until he reached its peak. Stopping meant death. True to the law of the jungle. The only way to survive was to keep fighting. To keep rising. So what will it be for me? To rise to the top of the food chain until I can slaughter every foe with no fear at all? Or to perish, becoming a stepping stone for another beast? What will become of me? Ryuk asked himself, and in the next instant, something long and green flashed toward him with ferocious speed. He barely dodged his head to the side as a straight bloody line instantly opened up across his cheek, blood pouring down, some of it splashing into his lips, sending the taste of iron through his mouth. But that was only the beginning. The chameleon retracted its tongue in a split second, and it was already lashing toward Ryuk again. He instantly jumped away from where he stood, running in a circle as the ground beneath him repeatedly cracked open from the flickering tongue of the beast. I understand a little now, Mad White. I understand. The flickering tongues lashed beneath his feet, causing him to jump into the air to avoid it. He landed on a tree, his body crouched on it, nails dug within the hard bark, causing blood to ooze from his fingers from the sheer hardness of the tree. Yet, his gaze remained fixed on the chameleon. The beast instantly flicked out its tongue again, but Ryuk had already moved away before it could reach him, landing on another tree. Then another, and then another until he became an inhuman blur, circling around the chameleon and jumping from tree to tree. You might be right, Mad White. This is most likely a trail, and now the unspoken goal is to reach the top of the food chain. Ryuk's speed became so inhumanly fast that even the chameleon could no longer see him. Merely catching glimpses of a blur moving around it, and it unconsciously stopped flickering its tongue-out form, repeated failure to catch Ryuk's blurry figure. And that was when, Shri 3-eyeing, a deep cut opened up on the chameleon's legs as a sharp edge slashed through it, sending red blood splashing through the air. Ryuk continued blurring around the trees before once more lunging forward toward the chameleon, creating another deep mark on its flesh. I accept the trial. Grew. A deep roar of anger left the chameleon's maw as it suddenly swiped to the side, only for a scythe's edge to flash past its neck, carving a deep 3-centimeter line within. Another mournful roar echoed through the forest. Red blood covered its entire body, various blade marks scattered all over it. Now, with its neck oozing blood, it felt tempted to run as it instantly retreated, scrambling back into the trees. It climbed rapidly, its body shifting to blend with the leaves. But then, a shadow appeared right on top of the tree, standing in its path as Ryuk soared downward, his scythe raised high above his head. Flyik! Instantly, the chameleon lashed out its tongue toward the falling Ryuk, who swung his scythe with all his power. Ryuk! The sound of flesh being ripped apart rang through the forest as Ryuk's scythe passed through the chameleon's tongue, severing it into 2 clean halves before continuing its deadly arc. The blade sliced through its maw, cleaving downward, until it reached its very tail. Boom! The ground shook heavily as he landed, blood and organs raining from the sky, splattering all over his body. He shrugged them off, a grin of exhilaration forming on his face as a notification flashed before his eyes. Congratulations! You have killed a Grade C slithering chameleon beast. You have obtained 2000 EXP. Total EXP, 9,800/10,000. Nice! Ryuk mused, his gaze settling on the carcass of the chameleon before narrowing in thought. The forest might contain beasts far stronger than I am, but I am not helpless. The more beasts I kill, the more EXP I gain. And the more EXP I gain, the more levels I climb, along with earning more attribute points. With enough attribute points, it's only a matter of time before I rise to the top of the hierarchy. All I need is to keep hunting down beasts. The weaker, the better. As I grow stronger, I'll move on to higher level beasts, which will no doubt fetch more EXP. Ryuk mused, forming a small plan in his mind. But before he could go further, he was interrupted by the sight of Isha appearing beside him, her gaze fixed on the chameleon's corpse. "Good job," she said. Ryuk simply shrugged his shoulders, but then his eyes flashed as another idea formed in his mind. "I have Isha, and right now, she is the safest here since I can instantly call her back to the pet world. This place is teeming with beasts, and while I'm no longer the weakest, it would still be an unfortunate scenario if I ended up encountering a powerful beast like that anaconda. My chances of survival would be close to nil. In short, I need to be aware of the areas where the weaker beasts are, and the ones where the stronger ones reside. If there's one thing I know about beasts, it's that they establish territories. I need to understand the layout of this forest, but doing that myself would be too risky. Why don't I send Isha instead? She's incredibly fast and can even glide in the air. With her power and beast bloodline, she can easily sniff out other beasts' territories. And even if she comes across a powerful creature on the level of that anaconda, I can simply recall her into my pet world, keeping her safe while also protecting myself." Ryuk quickly discussed the plan with Isha, who listened before giving a casual shrug of agreement. "Cool. But it's getting late, though," Isha said, pointing her claws toward the distance, where the red sun was dipping into the horizon. It was only a matter of time before darkness completely took over, and who knew what horrific carnivorous beasts would emerge at night. That was worth considering. For that reason, Ryuk decided to postpone his plan until the next morning. This chameleon owned this tree. It must have been its territory. I couldn't see it before because of its exceptional hiding ability. But now that it's dead, I might as well claim this tree as my own territory. I can rest here for the night. Ryuk turned his gaze to the enormous tree behind him. Without wasting another second, he got to work, climbing higher and higher until he reached the very top. From this vantage point, Ryuk could see miles into the distance, and what he saw shocked him. Even from here, he could make out colossal beasts, some nearly 7 meters tall, their massive forms distinguishable even from afar. Most were slumbering, but their sheer presence made Ryuk's heart pound. Grade B. They're all at Grade B. He was still processing the sheer scale of these creatures when he noticed something peculiar. Each beast had a distinct area surrounding them, an environment unique to their nature. For example, there was a gigantic lizard-like creature resting atop a mountain, its immense size easily discernible. Hot lava seeped from its nostrils and lips, flowing down in thin, molten streams. Another part of the forest was shrouded in utter darkness, with dried leaves and scorched ground sizzling with steam. From there, Ryuk could barely make out the dark anaconda, wound up into a coil, seemingly in deep slumber. There was a dozen more such creatures, each one a testament to how dangerous this place truly was. Thankfully, they were far away from his current location. "Soon," Ryuk muttered to himself before descending the tree. He moved to the surrounding trees, slicing them down with precision. Soon, he had gathered a large stack of wood in his arms, and with Isha's help, he carried them up into his newly claimed tree. Carefully, he found a smooth section between two branches, placing another tree trunk over it as he began constructing something. Isha watched Ryuk work with curiosity, wondering just what the hell he was doing. But she wasn't too concerned and soon slipped away, leaving him to his task. 3 hours later, Ryuk wiped the sweat from his brow, redrawing his scythe. In front of him stood a mini-home, shaped like a hut, crafted entirely from tree branches and leaves, carefully hidden amongst the foliage. Dipping his consciousness into the spatial ring given to him by Mad White, Ryuk brought out an object shaped like a slate. He threw it into the hut, and it immediately flared up, forming a dome that filled the inside of the hut. Entering it, He found the ground of the dome covered in a soft material, with a single pillow placed at the top. It was about 2 meters in length, just enough to fit Ryuk's height of 1.9 meters. A satisfied smile appeared on his face as he looked at his creation. It was a poor condition compared to the enormous soft bed he was given at the academy, but Ryuk had lived through much worse in Grade E and didn't mind it at all. If anything, he was surprised and prideful he could construct a home for himself within the wilderness. With that done, his consciousness dipped into the spatial ring once more, and Ryuk brought out 2 cards. One of the cards was green in color, none other than the defensive runic card. The other was red, the offensive runic card. Gently, Ryuk placed them under the pillow. While the tent was said to have a feature that allowed it to sense danger, Ryuk wasn't willing to bet his life on that. So, for security reasons, he decided to place a defensive and offensive runic card under his pillow. If he was ambushed, it would be easier to crush them quickly compared to having to dip his consciousness into his spatial ring and bring them out. The difference was only about 5 seconds, but in an ambush, that was more than enough time for a living body to drop dead. At least he knew that much. With his home constructed, well hidden on a high tree and obscured from gaze by branches and leaves, Ryuk felt much more confident about the approaching night. The sun was now starting to completely disappear, and in its place, Ryuk could see not just one but actually 2 moons, curved and adorning the dark night sky. Stars were also beginning to appear, and a strange green and purple hue filled the sky, giving more brightness than in Endearth. It was a marvelous sight, but it only made Ryuk more cautious. The night is a bit too bright. The hut risks being seen, he thought to himself, but then shrugged. There wasn't anything he could do to change the sky's light. Only be more cautious. Hey Isha, what do you think? Ryuk asked, looking down with a beaming smile, only to realize she wasn't there. Hey Isha, Ryuk called telepathically in his mind, and her voice soon came. What's up? You in trouble? Isha said, and Ryuk could faintly hear the flapping of wings, revealing that she was probably on the move right now. I don't think I need to tell you to stay low-key, do I? There are beasts everywhere, and it's night. Mutated beasts are more active at night. Who knows what horror will appear just 10 minutes from now? Ryuk asked. It was now starting to get dark, and Isha was out there, gliding away to who knows, and for whatever reason. Are you forgetting, Ryuk? Isha's voice suddenly came back, making Ryuk raise an eyebrow. Forgetting what? I'm nocturnal. The night is my time, Isha said. Ryuk stood rooted in place for a while, shocked. He had never considered that. So don't worry about it. You can go to sleep. I'll try marking out territories and identifying the beasts that live around your area. Expect the report tomorrow morning. And if all hell breaks loose, I'll simply fade into the pet world. I am free in this place, Isha stated. WWW. Suddenly, a loud howl rang through the entire forest. Birds fluttered off trees, racing into the night sky, but it wasn't just a single howl. A couple more howls rang out through various parts of the forest, signaling the awakening of the night predators. Ryuk felt his heart chill within him. Just be careful, okay? He said with a gulp as he moved into the tent. Don't sweat it, Isha said, but then Ryuk's eyes narrowed. Hey Isha. Yes, she replied. You're free to do anything you want, but you must never do one thing, Ryuk stated, his voice extremely serious. The flapping of wings stopped as Isha, who had been flying in the night sky, descended onto a tree, her eyes narrowing as she listened calmly. Don't. I repeat, don't devour a beast without asking for my permission, irrespective of any reason you may have. You can kill a mutated beast if you want, but never devour it. Not the blood, not the meat, not the flesh, not a hair on it. Never allow a blood of a beast to flow into your throat even in battle. If you can't kill a beast without biting it with your maw, risking its blood floating down your throat, then leave it alone and come back into the pet world. Don't ever do that. Do you understand? Ryuk's voice was cold and authoritative. Silence followed from Isha for a while as the crimson slit in her eyes, which had formerly opened up, slowly withdrew at Ryuk's order. I understand, Isha said before the telepathic communication was severed, and its presence continued into the distance. Ryuk turned to look at the top of the tent where he was lying. I know that's why you want to stay out, Isha. I can feel your bloodlust increasing. He muttered with furrowed eyebrows after severing the communication. Isha wasn't like him. She was a beast. No matter how tame she was still, without a doubt, a beast. And not just any beast. She was a frost wyvern. If there was anything common with beasts, it was their need to devour their prey once they killed it. That was how they gained their power and grew stronger. But that was the one thing Ryuk would never allow Isha to do. To devour another beast to grow her strength. That he definitely wouldn't allow. I hate it. I hate it. The thought repeatedly echoed in Isha's mind as its claws grew longer, a crimson slit opening up in its eyes, and its gliding wings became as sharp as razors. I had no choice but to run away from a lesser creature. To run away like a coward. Me, a coward. I hate it. I really hate it. It repeated to itself as it suddenly pierced forth into the sky, appearing about 50 meters in the air before suddenly. R. A powerful roar left Isha's lips, sonic booms rippling down from above and spreading rapidly through the entire forest like wildfire. I'll rid myself of my hatred. I'll rid myself of this nauseating weakness. I know how. I know how. Show www. Show www. Show www. Immediately following Isha's roars, the howls of creatures poured out from the forest as birds flew higher into the air. Instantly, Isha's eyes flashed with a crazed bloodlust, silver mist bursting out from its pupils as it rushed forward higher into the sky. Appearing 15 meters in the air, its maw opened wide, and then, the air shook violently as a pillar of ice pierced downward with horrific power, its meter-wide area enough to send trees into the air, spiraling away. Finally, it revealed the gruesome 2-meter-tall creatures that were in the path of Isha's ice pillar. Pitch-dark fur, flaming crimson eyes, claws that tore through the ground beneath them as if it were nothing but butter, and an aura, with the weakest being at grade C. It was a pack of about a dozen night wolves. But they weren't the only ones. Birds flew off trees from different areas, showing terrifying beasts rushing toward where Isha's roar had come from. It was a call to battle from Isha, one which all nocturnal beasts must attend. A bloodbath was about to begin, and it opened up from Isha, whose ice pillar ripped through some of the wolves, severing them into two. Their blood froze from the intense cold, shattering into pieces and dispersing into nothing but air. Bam! Splatitator. Blood splashed across the ground as Isha's humanoid figure landed on a wolf, slamming into its head and sending brain matter splashing all over the area. Another intense roar boomed out from Isha, followed by the image of its frozen, huge claw slashing through the air. Bang! A powerful collision rang out as a wolf appeared in Isha's claw path, sending out its own gigantic claw and slashing fiercely at Isha. But it lost the exchange as it was repeatedly pushed back. Yet, Isha was gone instantly, reappearing above the wolf, which was suddenly ripped into the air by none other than Isha's wings tearing out from its neck, straight into the sky. Then it flung the wolf away, slamming it into another beast as both crashed into the ground. But then, another group of creatures appeared. A group of black, lizard-like Komodo dragon creatures with hot flames spewing from their mouths. Their eyes locked onto the pack of wolves, and most especially Isha's figure, making powerful roars ring through the night. The air beneath Isha shook as it ripped through the pack of wolves, rapidly ascending through them to clash with the new arrival of Komodo dragons. I'll get rid of my nauseating weakness. Kill so much, until it fades away. The murderous thoughts echoed in Isha's head as it arrived before the first lizard, claws slashing against maws, trees being uprooted, as a battle that shook the forest rapidly unfurled. Yet it was just the beginning of the first night of chaos. Crackk. Crackk. The sound of bone cracking resounded through the cozy little tent, where a snow-white-haired figure sat, his back slowly sinking into the comfy, soft material the tent was made from. Finally, I can go to sleep, Ryuk mused under his breath as he placed his head on the pillow, feeling the runic card he had placed underneath. His eyes started growing heavier. He had been exhausted ever since he made up his mind to enter the portal. He hadn't felt peace since then, and being in this place only worsened that feeling of unease. But now, lying in his somewhat safe and cozy resting spot, he felt he could at least have some peace and cool his nerves. When he woke up tomorrow morning, his taut nerves would have relaxed considerably, and he would be better prepared to fulfill his duties here. Before he could sleep, though, Ryuk caught the gaze of the Apex watch on his arm. Switching it on, he was surprised to see the Apex watch wasn't responding. I guess I truly lost communication with the Academy. I somehow saw this coming though, Ryuk thought to himself. It would have been nice if he could still send messages to the Academy from here, but that didn't seem possible, since the watch had gone into some blacked-out state. It was a cold reality. If shit happened to him here, there wouldn't be anybody coming for him. Dwelling on such cold thoughts only made his nerves more strained, and so he waved those thoughts off his mind and was about to completely shut his eyes when suddenly, an incredibly powerful and spine-racing roar echoed out from the distance, causing Ryuk to jump to his feet in shock. Instantly, he raced out of the tent, his eyes flashing toward the far distance, where he could see a gigantic beam of ice pouring down from the sky. His eyes narrowed as he realized, Isha? In the next instant, a notification flashed before his gaze. A Grade C night wolf beast has been killed by host's pet, Isha. You have been awarded plus 2,000 EXP. I get rewards from Isha's killings? Ryuk mused in shock, but his gaze quickly turned to horror when he noticed the sight of birds flying into the sky from all directions. Soon, the ground began humming from power as all beasts in the forest area started speeding toward the place where the roar had come from. Oh no! Step, step, step. The sound of hurried footsteps rang out through the dark of night, coming from none other than a snow-white figure racing into the distance at his fastest speed. It was none other than Ryuk himself, pushing his limits as he narrowly avoided trees in his path. The more he ran, the more he heard heavy collisions and the ground beneath him tremble like a beast running amok. Ryuk's teeth ground together in anger. Isha! Isha! He called out once more in his mind, but there was no reply. Instead, the sound of collisions grew louder and louder, painful and ragged roars of beasts ringing from the area. But the problem wasn't the roars of the beasts. It was how the beasts were running alongside Ryuk into the distance too. Ryuk knew the source of the roar. It was, of course, Isha. If that wasn't proof enough, the sight of the ice pillar was all he needed to confirm his suspicion. He had permitted Isha to fight with beasts if needed. But this wasn't what Ryuk had expected. Isha's roar had been so loud it had awakened all of the beasts in the forest, and now they were heading straight toward her. Why would she do something so stupid, waking up all the beasts and calling them to her? Isha was strong, but against almost all of the nocturnals in the cursed forest, it was only a matter of time before she would be killed. The thought of her death made Ryuk's heart clench even more as he sped up, racing faster and faster. He could have continued sleeping and told himself, if she got into trouble, she could simply use my pet world and come back. But the fact that she was stupid enough to roar so loud and call all of the beasts to her made Ryuk genuinely doubt if she would do that. Something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong, and he needed to be there. But it was the dark of night, with creatures lurking here and there, and Ryuk himself wasn't safe. He was on his path, running, when he felt the air stand still for a single second, and in the next instant, the tail of a beast whipped forward like a lash toward Ryuk's chest, faster than he could react, slamming head-on into him. The force of the attack blew his shirt open and sent him flying backward toward where he had come from, tumbling across the ground for a couple of meters before he came to a stop. Bleer Girk. Blood gushed out of Ryuk's lips as he tried to stand. The second he put weight on his legs, he collapsed onto his knees, but he forced the pain down, throwing himself away from where he stood just in time. A deep slash appeared where he had been, the ground sliced into two. Quickly rising to his feet, Ryuk found the one who had delivered the attack. It was a dog-like creature, except instead of a tail it had hard ropes for tails, 3 in total, dangling behind it. It was about 2 meters in pure size, just about Ryuk's own height, dark saliva sprouting from its lips as it locked its pitch-black eyes onto Ryuk. Warning! Warning! Host has come across the whip-tailed mutt, a lower-grade B creature. Creature has been assessed to be capable of killing the host. Host must proceed with caution. The system notification blared red as Ryuk almost felt his heart stop beating within him. A lower-grade B creature? That's equivalent to a core stage in the plane of Dominion. This type of beast is just one step below the colossal itself. Ryuk thought, gulping as sweat unconsciously trailed down the back of his neck. Yet, another powerful roar boomed out from the distance, the signal of the arrival of a new creature. Damn, why aren't you in the pet world? Isha. Why? I have to get to her. Ryuk shouted in his mind, yet the sound of whistling in the air forced him to dive to the ground. A meter-deep, smooth line opened up the ground as one of the dog's tails slammed into it, tearing it apart. Crackly. Crackly. The sound of whips curling filled the air as the 3 tails repeatedly slashed toward Ryuk's figure, who became a blur, dodging here and there. Yet the tails stuck behind him like flies. He gritted his teeth, veins bulging on his forehead. Go away! He roared as his scythe appeared, and he cleaved it outward toward one of the tails, severing it into nothing. Just when Ryuk turned to slash off the second tail, his eyes faintly caught the sight of the severed tail instantly growing back. Before he could react, they wrapped around Ryuk's leg, pulling him and slamming him into the ground. Boom! A loud bang rang out from the smack as Ryuk felt pain tear through his spine. Blood burst out from his ears, which had borne the brunt of the attack, but he reacted quickly. Ryuk. His scythe cleaved down towards his legs, slashing off the tail. But just then, he caught sight of another tail wrapping and inching toward his stomach. He hurriedly cleaved outward and severed that one too before he shot back in speed. Crouched to the ground with his eyes staring at the mutt, Ryuk watched as it elegantly walked towards him, not at all worried about its tails, which were currently spewing out blood. As the whip-tailed mutt walked towards Ryuk, its severed tails began regenerating, the ends that Ryuk had slashed off knitting themselves back. In less than 5 seconds, its tails had been fully repaired, casting behind it in the air as a ferocious and taunting smile laid on its face, looking at Ryuk's bloody figure. Damn it, Ryuk thought. The creature before him had tails that could tear through his body like knives through butter and even lift him off his feet and slam him into the ground. The mutt was also smart, as it only attacked with its tails instead of its entire body, forcing Ryuk away from it while keeping him occupied with its tails, which it could easily regenerate if Ryuk severed them. There was now no doubt about it. The creature before him was a menace, and he wouldn't be rescuing Isha if he didn't defeat it. What do I do? What do I do? How do I defeat this? Boom, boom, boom. The earth quaked as ginormous bodies were thrown over the trees. Roars filled the air, shockwaves rippling out repeatedly as beasts ravaged against each other, blood spilling into the atmosphere. It was a primal beast war, blood spraying high, mingling with the organs of fallen creatures as their battles shook the night. The moon in the sky barely gave light to the chaos below. Among these brutal wars, one stood out as the most jaw-dropping. Corpses upon corpses of beasts lay on the ground, organs, intestines, and body parts scattered across the terrain, small rivers of blood already formed. Heads piled upon heads, their eyes revealing the horror of the battlefield. At the center of this bloody chaos stood a beast coated in pure crimson, streaked with shades of white. Bloodied claws still held the various body parts of fallen beasts. Her wings bore the hearts of her enemies, splayed out like grotesque decorations. The only part of her untouched by blood was her maw, revealing sparkling silver fangs that oozed an intense ice frost. Around her, the ground was half frozen, but the hot blood flowing incessantly melted the ice, creating a stark contrast between fire and frost. The figure was none other than Isha, who now radiated a ferocious aura far beyond anything she had ever possessed, looking like a true beast of murder. Surrounding her were about 7 beasts of different races, eyeing her blood-drenched figure. 4 of them were cat-like creatures, their differing skins showcasing their racial variants. 2 resembled lizard-like monsters, and the last was a long serpentine python with crimson-red scales and venomous eyes, locked onto Isha. The silence was suffocating as the beasts revolved around Isha's bloodied figure before. Air. A powerful roar erupted from Isha's maw as the beasts instantly attacked at once. It was a silent signal for death, and Isha rushed towards one of the creatures, the python. Immediately, the serpent lashed out with its massive tail, the air around it being blown into nothingness. But then, Rai Irap! Isha raised one of her wings, placing it against the path of the tail's smack. Screech! A painful shriek escaped the red python's lips as Isha's wing tore through its flesh, ripping it apart from the other side. The beast's face gathered flames in its maw as it shot forward towards Isha's figure. But then, boom! Rai-aini-aini-aini-aini-aini-aini-ip. Flames exploded into bits as Isha's frozen claw tore through them, causing a powerful explosion that reached up into the sky. But the sound of something being sliced to bits rang out as Isha's second claw bashed forward. The python dodged back insanely fast, but it was still too late. Its entire head was smashed into pieces, brain and eye tissue bursting out as its skull was slammed into the ground. Isha's claw landed on it, fastening it into the earth, breaking it further into pieces. Rueh! Isha's triumphant roar was cut short as 3 claws slashed into her back, carving incredibly deep lines and tearing out flesh. Furious, she turned, a beam of ice gathering in her mouth and instantly shooting forward. 2 of the leopard-like beasts jumped away from her polar attack, but one wasn't quick enough. The pillar of frost slammed into its body, freezing it completely like an ice block. Instantly, Isha's tail swept towards the ice-locked creature, smashing its form into pieces, sending blood splashing out as the creature was shredded. Clasp! A mournful roar left Isha's lips as she felt 2 maws clamp against her wings. And then, Raya-ite! Her 2 wings were ripped off her body, devoured by the gigantic crocodiles that had attacked her while she was busy with the other creature. Immediately after her wings were torn apart, Isha slammed her tail backward, slamming into the crocodile's lips and sending them tumbling into the distance as they crashed into the ground. Bam! The ground shook heavily as Isha landed, her palm dripping with cold aura into the earth. Powerful ice energy exploded towards the surrounding area, blowing away the cat-like creatures that were about to attack her. The crocodiles were still rolling on the ground when Ri-ite! A small hill of ice nearby erupted from the ground, with its pointed end ripping into the crocodiles and lifting them high into the air. Ru-air! Painful roars that would send chills deep into the hearts of the bravest men left the crocodiles' lips as they looked at the pointed ice pillar, which had ripped precisely into their chests. Their hearts dangled on the tip, creating a horrifying, chilling aura as they quickly drew their last breath. Gruo-wall! A growl left the lips of the 3 remaining tiger-like creatures, and 2 of them lunged towards Isha with wide, sharpened claws. Isha slammed her 2 claws towards them, deciding to face both attacks head-on. But she was instantly sent tumbling away from the power, crashing into the ground and slamming into a tree, settling down as everything came to a stop. Blood poured out from her wings, which had been severed, and from the long claw marks on her back, but she paid them no attention. Her ferocious red eyes locked onto one of the cat-like creatures, which suddenly faded into nothing but shadows. In the next instant, a whirlwind of darkness swirled through the battlefield, instantly focusing near Isha. Immediately, shadow-like claws ripped out from them. Isha slashed through the claws, but it was as if they didn't exist. Re-Ethiop. But when the shadows clashed through her back, they ripped open her thick scales, causing a painful roar to leave her maw. One of the creatures had appeared before her face, slashing its claw and carving 3 diagonal lines on her face, barely missing both her eyes. Blood splashed out, some of it staining Isha's vision. I'll kill them. I'll kill them all. A turbulent thought echoed in Isha's mind, and in the next instant, boom! A heavy explosion resonated forth as one of the tiger-like beasts suddenly had something smash into it from above, sending half of its entire body exploding into nothing. The scene instantly attracted the attention of the remaining 2 beasts and Isha herself as they looked at the new entrance. A humongous devil whose source could have only been from the deepest depth of hell, with an equally humongous scythe in his grasp, intense mist bursting out of his lips and nose. 10 minutes ago. How? Just how do I defeat this? Ryuk wondered, breathing harshly as he looked at the nightmarish beast before him. As if the beast wasn't horrifying enough, shadowy flames suddenly began dancing deep within its eyes, spreading downward until they reached its 3 whip-like tails, enveloping them in ghostly, shadow-like fire. Crackle, crackle. Immediately, Ryuk's eyes narrowed, seeing the air being sliced to bits from every dance of the whips. And in the next instant, WHHHHIP. A much louder crack echoed as he prepared to shoot away from where he stood, only to pause, noticing the tails were still dancing around the mutt. But then, droop, SPLATT. The sound of something dropping awoke Ryuk as he slowly turned to look at his feet, finding a severed leg on the ground, blood oozing out of his now severed knees. What just happened? Immediately, the floor creaked as Ryuk shot backward with speed, but the mutt reacted instantly, sending its whip after Ryuk, lashing toward his chest. He barely raised his scythe up to block the attack, only to be sent flying backward. Even after crashing into a tree, blood gushed out of his throat from the force. But in the next moment, he faded away, just as a line appeared on the tree, instantly severing it in 2. Damn! Damn! Ryuk screamed in anger as he felt a painful roar echo out from the distance, one he knew without a doubt to be from Isha. In the next instant, his crimson eyes flared with an incredibly bright light. You bastard! Ryuk roared as he jumped into the air, slamming his leg on a tree branch and darting away with horrific speed. The tattoo on his legs began lighting up with an incredibly bright blue light as his speed increased so much that he became a blur of blue light. Yet the tail followed after him tightly, easily keeping up with his figure. As Ryuk defended himself against it, his crimson eyes flashed as he realized something. The mutt, it's also stopping me from reaching it. Even though it has sharp claws and fearsome fangs, it isn't attacking with those. Instead, it's using its tail and trying to keep me at a distance. Its tails are almost invisible, they regenerate almost instantly, and with the addition of these shadow flames, they can slice through me like butter. They're no slower than me too. If I keep fighting the tails, I'll only wear myself out and lose the battle. What I need is its weakness, and if it's fighting me from a distance, then its large fangs and claws are just a way to fool me. This main body is, in fact, its weakness. Ryuk analyzed with flashing eyes, and in the next instant, he changed his motion, arriving behind the beast and then moving forth straight toward it in a direct line. Immediately, the beast sensed Ryuk's approach, an angered yet cautious glint flashing in its eyes as its 3 tails immediately pierced forth towards the approaching Ryuk, the shadows from them thrusting out with more intensity. Ah! Cold air seeped out of Ryuk's lips as he ordered, "Activate Frost Veil." The second step Ryuk took, frost burst out into the world with power, freezing even the air blowing around as everything came to a pause, the world rapidly turning into one of white. The shadowy tails coming toward him were instantly met with the frosty world. Though they pierced through the mist, as they ascended forth, they began freezing up, the shadows dancing on them stuck in ice blocks. their speed drastically slowed down. In the next instant, RIP. A scythe ripped through the three tails at the same time, severing them clean off and continuing with speed into the distance. Ryuk's scythe danced around him as he moved with ghost-like speed, severing the tails into chunks of ice and destroying them faster than they could regenerate. And in less than 5 seconds, he was right into the beast. Dai! He roared as his scythe cleaved upwards towards the beast's head. But with surprising agility, the beast jumped backward, a line appearing on its jaw, but it succeeded in blocking Ryuk's strike. But in the instant mist exploded all over the world. Ryuk's image faded away into thin air. Bam! The world shook heavily as it landed back on the ground, its eyes looking around the area, its visibility having been greatly reduced. But then the mist began to clear, and its spine froze up as it looked above, finding Ryuk standing 5 meters in the air. His palm pointed directly down at its head, surrounded by hundreds of glinting shards of swords. Ice sword fall, Ryuk muttered, and immediately, the hundreds of swords rained downwards towards the beast, whose figure flickered as it hurriedly tried to move around. But then the shadows of the swords swamped over it, spiraling into its skin, and soon its entire body was laid down flat onto the ground, unholy blood oozing out from its body. Got you, Ryuk thought as he instantly soared downwards, his scythe behind him before cleaving towards the beast's head. Immediately, the beast turned its fang up, trying to stop the attack, but Ryuk already knew its fangs and claws were weak and continued with the attack with all his power. Crackck. Bah! Immediately, Ryuk's scythe smashed into the beast's maw. His face changed when he felt cracks spreading through his scythe and then shatter. His scythe shattered into nanobots as he collapsed onto the ground with only a cracked, failed handle in his arm. What just happened? He wondered in shock as he instinctively turned to the beast, who had its maw opened up at Ryuk, looking at him with a sinister smile. In the next instant, Ryuk instantly shot backward, realizing something had gone wrong. But he was stopped dead in his tracks when 3 objects pierced out of his stomach from behind, slowly lifting Ryuk up as blood rained down his lips. His eyes widened in disbelief. I was tricked? In front of him, Ryuk could see the dangling shadowy tails ripping out from his stomach, sapping him of every vestige of strength as a ghastly beast's chuckle rang out through the area, echoing loudly in his defeated heart. Slowly, the beast walked forward towards him, its tail held up at his eye level. As its shadowy eye stared deep into him. You, foolish, weak, the beast called to Ryuk, whose eyesight dimmed as he looked at the beast's claw slowly rising towards his body and then, RIPPP. In one swift move, his shoulder burst out with blood, as his hand was cleanly severed by only a single finger from one of the beast's claws. I've been tricked, Ryuk mused, looking down at his dangling feet with dim eyes. The beast fooled me by only using its tail to attack, making me think that was its only way to strike. I had looked at its claws and seen they barely made any mark on the ground, nor did they even shake it that much contrary to its tails. I thought its claws were weak, no doubt. Yet now, they are easily slicing into the ground as if it was nothing but butter. Ryuk mused, looking at where the beast's claw was ruthlessly slicing into the earth. Such a thing never occurred during the battle, meaning the beast was purposefully fooling me. It fought with only its tail and tried to keep me off its body deliberately, so I would believe its fangs and claws were useless and not a threat. That made me draw in close to it, and in the end, its claws and fangs just happened to be its most powerful weapons. I was defeated in intelligence by a grade B beast. My analysis was wrong, for the first time ever. Even when I know all beasts' main weapons are their claws and maws, I still somehow fell prey to a bloody mutt like this one. RIP. Once more, Ryuk's second leg was severed from his hips, but he drew no gasp of pain at all. His defeat rang louder and caused more pain through his own mind. He wasn't disappointed that he lost in strength. It was a grade B beast, for hell's sake. one equivalent to a core stage plane of Dominion Beast. Trying to fight it while only being at the core stage of the plane of Ascension himself was already insane in the first place. What hit him was that he had lost in his intelligence. He had been outwitted so easily and fooled, and just when he had thought victory was in his palms, he had felt it snatched away from him and reduced to a useless state. My intelligence isn't absolute. My analyses aren't perfect. Sometimes, I can still be wrong, Ryuk thought as the beast slowly opened its gigantic maw and then inched towards Ryuk's head from above. Its intent was clear, to snap off Ryuk's head from above. In the end, only one thing can set everything right. Only one thing is truly absolute and can't be fooled or manipulated. Ryuk mused as he slowly raised his head, his eyes looking straight into the shadow beasts, and a deranged smile appeared on his face. Activate Nano-Umbral Reaper. The second those words were uttered, the beast's gigantic maw instantly cleaved outwards towards Ryuk, biting straight into his waist. Ryuk's upper body was instantly swallowed up by the beast, leaving what was left of his legs to fall onto the ground with a splatter. But then, the beast tried to chew on its prey, only to find out all of its teeth wouldn't move, and in the next instant, it backed up hurriedly as panic set into its eyes. Soon, it was accompanied by horror, but it was still too late. RIP. A gigantic, clawed hand ripped out from the beast's forehead, iron-like and holding a milky white substance, which was none other than its brain. Cho www. A pained howl left the beast's mouth, but it was cut short as 5 gigantic lines appeared along its face and then, RIPPP. Its head was burst open as a claw tore it apart, and then, bam, it landed on the ground, deader than dead. Congratulations! Host has defeated the whip-tailed mutt, a lower-grade bee creature. Rewards? Plus 7,000 EXP. Ah! A deep inhale left Ryuk's lips as he slammed down to the ground. A heavy stomp from his sharp claws tearing through the earth like it was nothing but butter. He had instantly regenerated all of his body parts, now towering at an incredible height with dark marks all over his body. Raising his hand to one side, his Nano Reaper scythe began reconstructing itself as Ryuk's eyes unconsciously turned to look at the beast now missing its head. In a second, the tide had changed, and he who ought to be dead was now standing triumphant. Looking at the curved moon in the sky, a grin spread across Ryuk's lips as his scythe fully formed in his hands. Tonight is Night Hunt. An inhuman growl escaped his devilish lungs, and in the next instant, he soared forward with speed, piercing into the sky of the entire forest and instantly shooting downwards towards a particular direction where he sighted his first target. A heavy explosion resonated forth as one of the tiger-like beasts suddenly had something smash into it from above, sending half of its entire body exploding into nothing. The scene instantly attracted the attention of the remaining 2 beasts and Isha herself as they looked at the new entrance. A humongous devil, whose source could have only been from the deepest, darkest depths of hell, with an equally humongous scythe in his grasp, intense smoke bursting out of his lips and nose. Immediately, Ryuk landed, then faded away once more, and then, RIP. The remaining 2 cat-like beasts suddenly had a slit appear down their throats, and in the next instant, as their claws unconsciously moved to feel the stinging pain, only for Thua-wump. Their heads fell to the ground, the final straw being none other than their own claws, as their huge bodies collapsed onto the ground, deader than dead. Now standing alive but battered was none other than Isha, with the devil standing in front of her, murderous waves oozing forth and slamming into her face head-on. Now Isha could feel it, the smell of death, the feeling of terror. Ah, Isha! Ryuk's voice, in his Nano-Umbral Reaper form, was incredibly thick and husky, further striking fear into Isha's heart. Unconsciously, she bowed to the ground before him, her head lowered, eyes closed. Right now, Ryuk himself was teetering on the edges of sanity and insanity. The Nano-Umbral Reaper took a great toll on his mind, but he managed to rein himself in. His increased intelligence made the power easier to control compared to when he had used it against Ignatius, where he had felt as if he were being possessed by an external entity. Stretching out his right claw, Ryuk gently placed it on Isha's forehead and closed his eyes. Faintly, he felt the connection deepen with every second, and soon, he could find Isha's raging thoughts. From her rage, he sensed the image of her lifting him onto her back and racing away, as they both fled from the dark anaconda they had encountered upon arrival. He also saw images of himself being slapped away by the colossal titan and sent tumbling to the ground. Ryuk could feel her pain, and the realization of it made hot lava spew even more from his lava-filled face. But it wasn't from tears, it was from anger. Not towards Isha, but towards himself. Isha's rage had first sparked because she had seen Ryuk smacked away by the colossal, because to her, Ryuk was a god, a king that couldn't be defeated, one whose strength was limitless. But Isha had watched his battle with the colossal. She had seen how he had fallen and barely won the fight. After that battle, Isha's faith in him had waned. Her delusion had been brought to light. Ryuk wasn't a god, nor was he undefeatable. He could still be beaten. She no longer felt safe. The feeling of disappointment had welled up in Isha, a feeling she had misdirected as hatred towards him, which Ryuk hadn't paid much attention to. Not because he didn't care how she felt, but because he knew well that in life, there were times when you win, times when you're defeated, and times when you have no choice but to run and try living to see the next day. The world was big, and he knew well he was far from being strong enough to ignore the law of survival. But for Isha, she had the ultimate belief that as long as he existed, she would always be safe. She would never have to run, for there would always be someone who could fight everything and remain undefeated. The fact that Ryuk couldn't do much against the colossal titan had planted that doubt, her feeling of security fading away. And what had truly twisted her mind, the true source of her rage, was the fact that she had reacted to her instincts and fled from the dark anaconda. Thinking about it, it was the first time Isha had run away from something, and she had had no choice but to do that due to her weakness. Her instincts screamed that the dark anaconda could kill her, and she had reacted, choosing to run. Only when she had gotten to safety had she remembered her action of retreat, running away like a coward. That was how Isha saw their retreat. She had seen herself as a coward instead of a survivor. Ryuk wasn't much bothered by the fact that he ran away in battle, because he knew well that survival was more important than pride. He might have run today, but a few weeks from now he would be fighting that anaconda and killing it. In the end, as long as he ran and managed to survive, he would always be the winner. But Isha didn't see the world that way. The term coward was what she had instantly identified herself as, and to get rid of that feeling, she had called for a challenge in the dark of night and fought. Bloodlust had clouded her, blinding her from the feeling of loss, and the only way she felt it could be settled was through battle. In the end, she had done nothing but cause trouble for Ryuk and get herself severely wounded. But can she be blamed? Can Ryuk still remain mad after learning why? By one full energy and injury rejuvenating pill, Ryuk ordered in his head as he slowly took his claws off Isha's forehead. One rejuvenating and injury pill found. Description: will instantly heal all of host's pet's injuries and energy, setting them back to 100% in less than a second. Price: 7,000 purchase points. The system notification appeared as Ryuk chose to buy it. Purchase points left: 8,000. Here, Isha, he called, as a small ice cube appeared in Ryuk's hand. He threw it into Isha's open maw. Immediately, a blue light appeared all over Isha, and with surprise, she watched as the wound lines on her body began melding, covering up completely and leaving no scars. Not long after, her wings, which had been torn apart, began regrowing anew. In less than 3 seconds, Ryuk watched Isha's battered figure instantly morph until she regained her normal form. Her aura had somehow vastly increased, even more than before, and Isha, too, could sense it. After this small battle, she had somehow managed to grow stronger, even though she hadn't devoured any of the beasts she had fought. Looking at Isha, now fully recovered and at 100% fighting capability. Ryuk grinned as he turned behind, sighting a horde of close to 1,000 beasts surrounding both his figure and that of Isha. They had been able to easily recognize both of them as the major threat, and now they were gathered over them. This number of beasts would have been enough to make Ryuk's heart quake. But now, in his Umbral Reaper mode, fear wasn't an existing emotion at all. Instead, he felt excitement and desire. A twisted desire to see more blood flow. Come with me, Isha. Come with me, and let's rid ourselves of our weakness. Together. Have I lost it? R.I.P. Cho WWWWWL. The sound of a blade ripping through skin. The pained howl of beasts. The dropping of bodies along with their lives. Have I lost it? The thought echoed out once more, as 3 heads soared into the sky, 2 of them flying into the distance, amidst the hot blood raining down his body. A head dropped to the ground, only to be crushed by an enormous foot, tipped with sharp claws. SHRING. The sound of a weapon dragging on the ground resounded, followed by red sparks as he stepped forth. The roars of beasts echoed in his ears as they charged forward with such speed and force that they knocked down trees with their might. Something flew past him, sending his clothes rippling around his body. A creature of snowy white, and in the next instant, RIP. A pillar of ice tore through the crowd of approaching beasts, organs and blood spilling everywhere. He took a single step forward, the ground seemingly sinking beneath the power of his feet as he rushed after the icy figure. RIP. Beasts attacked from the front, only to be ripped to shreds by his scythe. Some leapt from above, trying to bury him under their weight, but they exploded into gore as he reaped through them once more with his claws. His white shirt was covered in blood. His eyes were bloody red, the crimson shining even brighter. His claws held the remains of beasts. Around him lay the corpses of monsters, severed heads with eyes still flashing in horror. Have I lost it? The thought echoed out once more, from a far depth. A depth too far to make him hear. A depth too far to make him stop. His thinking was fading away. His thoughts were disappearing, yet it was the only thing left. His view was being covered by red, and more red, and more red, blinding him, yet never stopping his motion. His scythe slashed out faster. His claws grew more precise, ripping hearts out. His grin grew wider. His sense of thinking began to fade. Have I lost it? It came again, this time a bit louder, only to be drowned by a flicker of pain that faintly shot through his ear as he watched a creature flash past him. His own arm clutched in its mouth. But it hadn't even moved far when his scythe lashed out, passing through the creature and ripping it into 2 halves. His entire body recoiled as he felt the remains land on him, but an ice beam erupted from the side, freezing it completely. His remaining hand blasted out with claws, severing the ice block into nothing but shards, creating a gory mess over him. He rose to his feet, his grin never leaving as he rushed forward once more, albeit slower, but still bodies fell wherever he passed. Have I lost it? He asked once more, this time the voice ringing loudly and forcing him to halt. But that cost him. A claw ripped through his eye, slashing open a diagonal line across his face. But then, a tiger's head was sent flying too, as the beast crashed onto the ground. An abysmal howl left the maw of its severed head before it rolled away. Have I truly lost it? He asked once more, as he felt his hand moving. It moved without needing his body. It moved without his permission. It moved and caused bloodshed. But was it against his permission? No, it wasn't. The perception of time was lost. Time never mattered. Not now, not anymore. He only wanted and needed to see the blood falling. But eventually it all stopped. It all stopped when a figure knocked him down and ripped out his remaining arm, sending his scythes flying away from him. But then, a sword formed behind it, piercing out through the back of its neck and swiftly ending its life. A claw slammed into him, sending him flying off the ground and crashing into a tree by the side. He felt something rush towards him. It was a claw gleaming with darkness, slashing over his chest. But he ignored the attack as he felt a heavy force slam into him. But he was far too gone to care. The pain almost didn't exist. Instead, he stretched out his mouth and then, clench. His teeth sank into the soft, tender flesh of the creature's neck. A howl rang in his head, which, of course, was so silent it was almost invisible. He ripped out with his power, blood and meat raining down his lips as the beast staggered away, only to get crushed by an ice wing that ripped out from behind it, flailing in the air, before once more, R.I.P. Re-yip, Re-yip. Dozens of ice swords pierced into the beast's body, severing organs and bringing death within seconds as the beast gave its last howl and fell to the ground with a pulp. Roar! A powerful roar, one he could say he was a bit familiar with, rang out, and the sounds of beasts running stopped. Even though he stood with no arms and a bloodied body, the creatures with pure, murderous eyes stopped in their tracks as they looked at his sweaty figure and the creature standing by his side. It had scars on its body, one of its wings ripped off, yet it chilled them to their hearts when they looked at the bodies surrounding the two. Bodies of those who were no different than them, perhaps some even stronger. And after much anger, they drew back and ran away at their fastest speed. He was no weak creature. He was a monster of hell. They had rushed upon his figure, from above, from below, from the sides. Yet he never fell. Even in such a battered state, he seemed capable of sending them to their deepest nightmares. In the end, their ferocity was turned down, and they were forced to apply their brains. And this time it told them to run away as fast as they could. Oh! Mist escaped from his lungs as his crimson eyes looked at the backs of the retreating beasts, a grin on his face, but it soon faded away when he looked to the side and found the orange-colored sun over the horizon. Have I lost it? The sun was starting to appear. I fought through the night? He asked himself in shock as his legs finally gave way, crashing onto the ground as he fell to the side armless. No, host. The night has lasted for a total of 72 hours, equaling Indirtha's 3 days. So technically, it would be better to say the host has fought for 3 days and nights now and has kept Nano-Umbral Reaper active throughout these 3 days. Not by energy, as the host's body had already given up mere 3 hours after its activation, but by mere corrupted will. The effects will now settle in, 5 minutes from now, and the host better prepare well. The system said as Ryuk's eyes refocused, and he sighed at the face pressing against his head. It was Isha, and surprisingly, she had kept up with him through the entire night, even though Ryuk had bought around 10 or so more healing injury pills. Lesser ones. Hey system, how many purchase points do I have left? He asked. Purchase points. 500. I choose to buy one final lesser grade body healing serum. Lesser grade body healing serum. Purchase points. 500. Does host really wish to purchase? Yes. In an instant, a glass serum appeared in his palms, and he poured it into Isha's maw, just like he had done countless times now. Her injuries began fading away, the diabolical marks over her body vanishing, and her wings regenerating. In a few seconds, she was back to her peak. Hey Isha, Ryuk called weakly as he felt the world begin to fade. Yes, Isha replied. I will be going into a slumber for some time now. It might be a bit long. So, I want you to return to the treehouse I made and lay me in the tent. There's a storage ring on my severed hand, just right there, Ryuk said. As he looked at his severed arm laying about 3 meters away, Isha moved to it, picking up the blue ring. For some time now, I'll be in slumber. I forbid you from getting blood on your claws or maw while I'm in it. To get by, I'll pass you the ring. There are runic cards within and enough to keep us safe. Your main duty will be to protect the tent and ensure no harm comes upon me. You understand? Ryuk stated, as Isha looked at the storage ring before she nodded. Her rage toward her weakness had greatly subsided. She no longer had wrath in her mind, for now at least, and she could sense there was something in her, awakened by the battle she had just fought. Many things about herself which she had failed to notice before, she could now feel she had grasped, both about her body and her ice manipulation. It would be best if she spent some time trying to comprehend whatever understanding she had gained. And with Ryuk going into slumber, he surely would need to be protected. So it was best if she truly avoided any battle. Okay, Isha stated. And in an instant, Ryuk was swept up onto her back as Isha raced away from the blood-ridden battlefield. The darkness was getting deeper now. His sense of touch, smell, and even pain were starting to fade. "Hey, system," Ryuk called. "Yes. I amassed a lot of points from the battle, didn't I?" "Yes, host. During your mindless battle, you have brought ruin to a total of 31 grade C beasts and 7 grade B beasts. The 31 grade C beasts, with each beast giving about 2,000 to 4,000 EXP, give the host a total of 93,000 EXP. The grade B beasts give about 7,000 EXP each, totaling 49,000 EXP. Total EXP 142000/10,000. The system explained, but Ryuk couldn't see the notifications anymore. "Level me up and balance all my stat points equally amongst all of my stats while I rest in slumber." "You can do that, can't you?" Ryuk stated. "If the host wishes, but such a level up will cause a massive amount of pain and a possible re-evolution of the host's abilities and body that might cause quite the bit of self-alienation. It will be best if the host is in a conscious state to undergo the effect." The system explained, but Ryuk's vision had blurred completely to black, and soon he felt himself laid onto the comfy, soft material. "Good system. You do that," were his last words before his body fell limp, and he disappeared into unconsciousness. A deep unconsciousness that even he had no idea of its duration. His body lay limp and harmless under Isha's stare, but Isha's eyes held nothing but respect and reverence. She knew well she had only lasted through that battle because of the healing pills and sedum she had received. She had zero idea how Ryuk had gotten these things, but they were the only things that allowed her to fight by his side for so long through the battle. And throughout its duration, she had never seen Ryuk take a single pill or serum himself. He had been beaten, risen up, and fallen, only to rise again, be beaten down, and then fall once more, only to rise up back again. She had watched him rise and rise, with nothing but a scythe and her by his side. He had continued fighting and fighting. She had previously thought him weak. And even though Isha had been subdued by Ryuk due to his king's aura, she wasn't dumb. She also knew well it was only because of the weird skill Ryuk had used to subdue her. Somehow, even after this subduement, she still felt his weakness deep down. She still felt she was higher and he was unworthy of having her by his side. She felt him even more weaker when she saw his true capability with his fight with the Colossal. But now she had been proven wrong. He might be weak now. His ability now might be tiny compared to his abysmal potential. In fact, if compared, it makes him look like trash. But there's no doubt about it. He's willed enough to rise back up, even after every crushing defeat. He was strong enough to smile through the pain and suffering, endlessly rise back up after being beaten down. There's no doubt about it now. He will fill up his abyss of cup one day. And when he does, none will stand in his way and live. Perhaps that is when we both will be truly find peace. And until then, I'll be by his side. I swear on my life. I'll be by your side until the end of it all, my king.